Hi there, Sadge, Sun and Rising. This is your May 2021 Astro Update. It's Raina here, your fellow Sun and Sagittarius. Of course, if you're a rising Sag, this is very appropriate for you. And May is a month where we're going to have the eclipses start to heat up. And it's going to be in Sag in May and the opposite sign, Gemini, in June. But there's all kinds of activity that indicates that relationships will play an important part in your life in May, one-on-one relationships. So not just your significant other, but other types of relationships, including with clients that can really be front and center. So the sun, as we enter May, is in Taurus, and for Sag, that's in a very practical place, the sixth house, which deals with health, time management, the service that you provide to others. Another name for that is work. I don't really like the word work, do you? And so that is a very down to earth, of course, it's an earth house type of an influence. And the sun there means that you are really concentrating your efforts in this area. However, as early as the 3rd of the month, Mercury goes into Gemini. So Mercury is going into that 7th house and is dealing with relationships. So Mercury has been in the 6th house, and you may have been thinking about health matters. Maybe you're researching, you're doing something, reading about different diets and things like that, and or talking to a potential employer, negotiating with your workplace or something like that. And so then we have Mercury going into that 7th house. By the way, the 7th house is also the house of legal affairs. So you might be getting contracts all settled, and things like that, because Mercury can be contracts, and speaking to a lawyer and dealing with any kind of arbitration and that sort of thing. And just with, a partner. Now, if you're making wedding plans, then that could be what is going on as well. But on the 8th, Venus goes into that house as well. And so that can definitely be a harmonizing effect on your partnerships. And even money can be connected here, where you're able to generate more money with people. The 7th house is also public relations. And when, the fact that Mercury is there can mean that you're touching base with people. Maybe you're finding a way to reach clients in a more effective way. And I would say even people that have been your clients in the past, because this is going to be where the Mercury Retrograde kicks in the 7th house. And so for some of you, if you have your own business, this could be an ideal time to make contact with former clients. And you never know if you can drum up new business with them, because Venus is about money. Mars is going to be in Cancer all month long, and Mars for you is the 8th house. The 8th house is an interesting house. It's the house of your partner's money, or money that you obtain from other sources besides what you earn yourself. Although in my experience, the 2nd house can cover a lot of the money that you earn or that you attract to you. I would say that Mars in the 8th has a lot to do with matters concerning It's funny because I'm going to say conspiracy theories, but I would say conspiracy realities. And you might say, well, what would I be doing with that? Going down a rabbit hole, and that is your passion. And before you think that that is just kind of like not important, the reason that I do say it's important is because we don't just go to work and go to bed and do it all over again. We have other things going on in our life. We have passions in life. And I would say that Mars sometimes can be those passions that ignite for a person. And this can also be in the area of any kind of occult matter. Now, the word occult means hidden, so certainly this is one of the reasons why conspiracy theories, are filed under this category. The point is about trying to get to the truth, and Sadge is all about the truth. So, I mean, it could even be in your personal life, I suppose, if there is some kind of intrigue in your life. Maybe there's somebody that you're interested in, but you feel like they're not revealing their whole self, and you're trying to dig deeper. The eighth house is one of the houses that is connected to sex. We would call it magical sex, or the sex of intimate partners. So it's a serious kind of sex versus just casual sex of the fifth house. And Mars is a sex drive. So it is possible that for a relationship that may have been on the rocks, or maybe it's not so much that it was on the rocks, but it was going through a season where one or both of the people were going through their own things. And so they may not have been taking it out on each other, but they may have kind of been in their own worlds and wrapped up in their own problems, and not being intimate with one another physically, and that kind of gets reignited. And you can have a long-term relationship that, there's like, it's put on hold and then it reignites again. Or is that redundant? Reignites. It could be something along those lines, but like I said, delving into the esoteric, feet first. On the 11th, we have a new moon at 21 degrees of Taurus, and that may inspire you to new health habits. You may be working in a new place or in a new department, having a new daily routine that works for you at this time, instead of just doing the same old thing that may not be as productive for you anymore because other things have changed in your life. Maybe it's both. Maybe you have a new job and you have new hours, or you're working outside of the home now and you just have to rearrange your schedule. On the 13th, Jupiter goes into Pisces. Now, Jupiter is the ruler of Sadge. So it's going into Pisces, another mutable sign. For Sadge, this is the fourth house of home and family. Jupiter is going to go fully into Pisces, meaning consistently into Pisces, in December. Now it's going to just go to 2 degrees. And it's only going to be in Pisces for a couple of months, two or 3 months. But that's a pretty decent chunk of time. I think it goes retrograde on the summer solstice, but it's still going to be in Pisces at that time. I don't know exactly when it's going to go back into Aquarius, but it'll be several months in Pisces. So this can be a time to attract a new home, and possibly a more spacious home. This can be a situation where you luck into some kind of property. Now, I'm not saying owning, but it could be. It could be renting. But anything that feels like a step up, like you are expanding, you're what do they call it, leveling up your home game. On the 20th, the sun goes into Gemini, your opposite sign, and so this is a good time, like I said, if you have your own business, to really take focus on your client base and see how you can reach them more effectively, engage them more effectively. If you feel like you don't have enough repeat clients, you might find some ways to change that. On the 23rd, Saturn goes retrograde at 13 degrees of Aquarius. So Aquarius is for Sadge, the third house. This is the house of the internet. The 11th house is, but so is the third, because in the form of ways that we communicate. So this can be websites and things like that. Now, Saturn retrograding in this house may mean that any kind of progress that you're trying to make in the area of, I think the third house is even business matters, but in terms of communication, may not be as forward moving as you would like. There may be delays, and some of this can be because you have to redo something. It's not solid enough. So if you've created a website and it seems like you're having glitches. I don't mean like a Mercury retrograde, although Mercury is going to be retrograding only 6 days later. So it's going to be, Mercury is in shadow at this point, so it might have some kind of technological angle to it that's a snafu of some sort. But basically, anything related to communication has to be really, you have to take great care that things don't get distorted. And also just in terms of your own thinking patterns. It may be time to rethink how you perceive things. And the great thing about it is that it can actually give people who in their natal chart have an afflicted Saturn a more hopeful attitude. So retrogrades aren't always like 100% challenging. They can have some good aspects to them. But, I would say, especially with communication issues, take very great care in any kind of messages that you send out, even if they're like emails. Double check everything, because again, you're having this Mercury retrograde, and while it's in its shadow, and also, Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th, and it is in the 7th house of committed partnership, but wherever it is, I mean, it still in general can create some sort of confusion and miscommunication. So the fact that you have Saturn in that third house, which is a house that Mercury rules in the universal chart, means that there's some connection here. And when you factor in the shadow periods, I would say through the end of June, take especially good care while Mercury is retrograding, going back direct on June 22nd, and then coming out of its shadow through the end of June, that you don't want to add fuel to the fire. But, there might be, this might be a wonderful time for meditation for Sages because, you know, Saturn retrograding in the third house, your mind becomes something that is not as oppressive for you. So, okay, that's what I have for you. Sounds like a very busy month. Oh, one thing I wanted to state is, oh no, wait, no. I have to tell you about the lunar eclipse. On May 26th, we have a lunar eclipse at 5 degrees of Sadge. If you are Sadge rising from 6 degrees to 29 degrees of Sadge, this is actually going to fall in your 12th house. And I can draw some connections from the 12th to the first house, but this also applies for the sun in Sag. Unless you are an early degree Sag, and this is in your first house, that makes a lot of sense. But if you are a later degree, it's going to fall in your 12th house as well. Now, for those that falls in the 12th house, this can be a wonderful time to break addictions. And it's important to note that I'm not just talking about substance abuse. I'm talking about excessive internet, excessive, maybe some relationship that you're either codependent, you shouldn't be with that person because you just don't, they're not a good influence on you. They don't treat you right. Any self-defeating pattern can, through the grace of God, be eliminated. This is the house of karma. And so there, you could say there's a direct correlation between self-defeating patterns and karma, because sometimes it seems like these types of behaviors, which or proclivities, if you will, which the Buddhists would call samskaras, which are, deeply ingrained negative patterns. The reason they're deeply ingrained is probably because they're coming from another lifetime. And that's the same thing, on the flip side of that, talents are deeply ingrained positive attributes. It's not just one-sided, but what we're talking about here is more of the challenging side of things. And so being able to let go of that without having to, struggle. And I use the example of, one of, I can't think of anybody offhand, but, I love to read biographies, autobiographies of famous people, and sometimes they struggle with terrible addictions. And occasionally any kind of memoir, it could be somebody who's not famous, but they've written about their life, their addiction. And sometimes people will wake up one day and say that they don't want to drink anymore or use drugs, whatever. And it's like they just stop. Now, does that happen, often? I don't necessarily believe so. I think addiction tends to be a very difficult thing to shake, but it does happen. And I think that, maybe in some of those cases, they had a lunar eclipse in their 12th house. And it was like they were assisted with that. So letting go of old karmic patterns or having them being erased, I don't know. For those that it's falling in the first house, this can be your life in general on the mundane level, on the day-to-day level, something changing in a major way. This can relate to relationships because it is a powerful full moon and the sun is going to be in that 7th house. So if it's something that you're realizing about yourself and about how you tend to, put your own needs aside for somebody else, or maybe that you've been a little bit too self-absorbed and you need to spend more time with your partner. It could be that as well. So that's very interesting. And then on the 29th, that Mercury retrograde in that seventh house. And, based on that lunar eclipse, you may be having to rethink a significant partnership because you're really paying attention to how it's affecting you. So anyway, Sag, an action-packed month. I will say that the first half of the month is more of a forward-moving time. Then we start to have the retrogrades kicking in, and the eclipses, and well, one eclipse this month. So that can be, so the first half of the month, if you want to launch something, you might find that it's easier to do so. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, I do have double reading specials. Please click on the link below to find out more information. Take care.